Video for how to dry age your meat at home using nothing but this device, which is pretty important. I'll get to it. Um, you know, camera's optional, but I really like to see what these numbers are from anywhere so I know if I need to come down and panic fix anything. But you need this device, you need an old fridge. Use post-it notes is probably a good idea so you can date and age things. You're going to need a humidifier, and the humidifier is really important. And well, you can see my humidifier is currently going, which is good. You're going to need a bunch of fans. I just use computer fans. And you want racks in your fridge that aren't glass. You want the great kind. You're going to need a whole bunch of meat. And if you just heard a click, opening the door raised the humidity in here so much that it actually just turned off the humidifier, which is good. Temperature instantly up because the door was open. No big deal. So this video is for tips and tricks so that you know what to do, what not to do, and some of the ways of getting around some of the problems that I've experienced by, not spending $1,200 or whatever on a fridge that's dedicated for meat, but instead just getting a couple of fans, a humidifier, and off you go. So first thing that you want to do, like I said, old fridge. Get this, about $100 on Amazon. There's a sensor here, probe that goes into the fridge. One of them is for temperature. The other one is for humidity. And then, beautiful camera work, you plug your fridge into the first one, and then you plug your humidifier into the second one. And that's the brains of the outfit. So that is what lets you, well, the computer, control what's going on. So that way you're not having to do it all by yourself. Third thing you want to do is get all your CPU fans. I'm using 3 currently, and drill your holes into your fridge so that you have at least one power supply for your fans, one for your temperature probe, one for your humidity probe. You're going to need another hole for your humidifier power. You're going to need another hole for your water to get in and your oxygen out. And I'm going to show you what this does and how it's the greatest thing since sliced bread for humidity. It's a big lesson learned. The biggest lesson learned I had, though, is that all of your cold for your fridge comes from the freezer and moves into the fridge. That's at least for these old units anyway. So part of the issue, and that's pork butt, by the way, that's not just butt. So the issue that you have to work around is that your freezer cold comes down into here and goes into your fridge. But it's going to ice up when doing that. And you can see that there's ice here. This is really not bad right now. This is very little. But the issue that you have to get around is this is the only way for your fridge to get cold. And when the crazy humidity of, 90% humidity starts to block this up because of the freezing, you're screwed. Your fridge won't get cold. Your freezer will be plenty cold, but your fridge won't be. So my first solution to this was drill a bunch of holes so that way the cold air can get down, despite this being, well, the first solution was break it up with a screwdriver. That only lasted for a few minutes or hours. Second one, I'm like, let's drill a whole bunch of holes. And a few days ago, I was like, you know what, screw everything. Let's just get my Dremel and make one good big hole. That way all the cold can go down. There's no issue with anything getting blocked up, and I can just break that with a screwdriver or a hammer if it ever gets really, really, really bad, which it won't. So all of this stuff here, your knobs and dials and whatever, I ripped it all out because that's just a source of ice buildup, you know, which you don't need. So that's the proof that the freezer is cold, and that's the proof that the fridge is cold. So there's your first tip and trick. Second tip and trick is definitely have a humidifier in here, but if you notice, it's not very full, doesn't need to be, because I have an external reservoir that I'm using instead of this. Now, for the meat tip, you need air moving, but not directly pointed at the meat. If you just had one big large fan here and pointing up, then it's gonna basically burn the meat, which you don't want. It's not gonna be a temperature burn, but it will be a nice well, air burn. So what you're looking for with your meat is hard on the outside but soft on the inside. So this has not been in here for too long, and there's a lot of humidity in this because basically most of this meat is really fresh. So that's what you're looking for. It's a good idea to flip it every now and then. If you find that all the moisture is going to go down, right, with gravity, you know, it'll come down. And then if the underneath is wet and the top is dry, flip it. And you can see this pork tenderloin, it's actually a little darker in real life, but because I'm looking at in the camera and here, so it's actually got a little bit different color than what you're seeing, but it's drying. And this, if you see, like, that's hard. It's still spongy on the inside. Okay, another tip and trick is with pork butt or pork shoulder. Wrap these things. Get butcher's twine or any kind of twine or thin string, and you see this open gaps here? You don't want this. You really, and I was just lazy. I knew I should do this, but I don't know, I was in a rush. Tie these things so that you don't get these gaps. There's nothing wrong with the inside of this one, but you can see how fresh and moist and beautiful it is on the inside, because you don't want your whole meat drying out. You just want the outside crust being hard. The pellicose, I think it's called. This type of mold, this is perfectly good. This is actually what you want. This isn't white fluffy mold. This is, I think it's penicillin. Do your own research, but don't eat this. You cut this off. But you know, that's what you're looking for. This roast was tied already by the butcher, but you know what? I probably should even have tied it a little bit more, just so you don't get that little bit of gaps for air. I'm an old man. Getting up is hard. There's your humidity probe. Temperature probe is in there too. I wouldn't put the humidity probe directly in front of a fan, but don't put anything directly in front of a fan. Your beef, now this has been dry aging for about a month, and it's a nice dark beautiful color. Let's get more light on it. That's good mold, and it's a dark color. That's actually about color accurate for what it is. So this is basically ready at any point in time to be eaten. And then all you would do is just cut out the outside dark parts and eat the rest. So that's, I think, about it for the meat tricks. There's the hole, all the cold air coming down. Humidifier in the door. Water in and air out. Air out. Now I've got one-way valves on this. You don't need them. The only reason why I put that is just because it's easy to work with the tubing that way. This is just my maple syrup store. Don't worry about that. The sponge in here, not needed. It's just I had a lot of extra water in here today, and you know, sponge isn't going to hurt. It'll help keep the humidity in there. If your humidity drops for too low for too long, you're going to have just dry meat, and that is not good. You don't want to ruin it, you just want to age it. So, power supplies for the fans. You've noticed that there were, well, actually I didn't even show you, but I don't think, but there are 3 fans in here currently. I think 3 or 4 is the way to go. There's 1, there's 2, and down there is 3. This one right here is a 12-volt power supply fan for a computer, and it comes with that little casing, and that's a good thing. It helps you point it where you want. I think that's really the right way to go. You can probably find them really cheap. Go to any computer shop, repair shop, they must have a million of them that they're dying to get rid of. This fridge, by the way, was 70 bucks Kijiji, and I could probably have got it for a lot cheaper if I wanted to haggle, but they were really nice people. So, okay, power supplies for your fans. I have a 24 volt and a 12 volt. Actually, this is for the camera. There's a different one in here. Anyway, the power supplies, have them outside of the fridge. And outside of the fridge because there's a lot of humidity inside the fridge, and you don't really want to subject these things to your humidity. So have them outside, plus as well the heat that they make doesn't need to be in the fridge. So what I would recommend is just get, you know, however many 12 volt fans you want, add up all the amperage that they're going to consume, and make sure that your power supply is rated for that level of amperage. So for example, if you have 4 12 volt fans and they consume half an amp each, you know, half an amp times 4 is 2. Your power supply would have to be rated for at least 2 amps. And then there is startup and surge, so I don't know if that's factored in. At least 2 amps anyway. Okay, so the next big thing, and I think the last big thing, is this wizardry with the humidifiers. And I actually have an old a previous one, which I got out of the garbage. It kind of worked, but stopped working. But it's good for me to show you what's going on here. Air hose out, water hose in. Your water hose can go right down to the bottom. It's totally fine. Your air hose, though, should be much higher. So water all the way down, air up. If you think that you can just siphon in water using just the water in, you'd be thinking the same thing I first thought, and you'd be wrong. You'll get a leak everywhere. So the way that these things work is you fill them up with water and set them into the actual humidifier. Whenever you do that with these humidifiers, you hear glug, 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 and then the water goes in to the actual humidifier, and this is a vacuum. This vacuum is absolutely required. If it doesn't have the vacuum, it's going to leak come hell or high water. There's nothing you can do about it. You can silicone all day long, it won't matter. It will do as it's designed to do, which is leak all over the place. So this and this is the genius of the system, which I didn't invent, that's for sure. I'll post the forum link that described it. So because these things can use a lot of water when all the meat is really dry, an external reservoir is really worth having. So this external reservoir right now, although it's mostly full, you can see a very slight cave in here. That's the vacuum. This would bulge out more if it was just full of water. This cave in will get more and more as time goes on, and then I'm going to have to add, you know, just a little bit more air back in so that it doesn't collapse. But it's so important that you do this if you're going to use an external reservoir, especially if you don't have a camera on your oh my god, again, I'm old. Getting up sucks. There we go. Okay, so water in, air out, air on the top, air on the top, water on the bottom, water on the bottom. And if there's no leaks anywhere, you'll have this beautiful vacuum and beautiful humidity forever. I think that's it for tips and tricks. I've got valves in here for shutting off It's for when I want to refill this, and I don't want to wreck any vacuum that's in there. So that's why I have these valves. They aren't required, but they're optional. And same with the one-way valves that I had, not required, optional. That's about all I can think of. Aged meat is absolutely ridiculous. This is the brains of it. Everything else is just kind of, well, in the fans. You have to have them. And otherwise, enjoy your aged meat. Any questions? I guess I'll check comments. I'm doing this video because a friend of mine's considering it. And he needs some kind of reference and help. I told him I'd do this. Here it is. Enjoy your aged meat.